Hello there, and welcome to episode 1, our maiden voyage of That One Gaming Podcast, your new twice-monthly source of gaming goodness. I am Colin, otherwise known as Delicious Morsels, and I'm joined here today by Lucas, aka Carn9. How you doing, Lucas?
Doing good.
Sweet. And also joined here by Neal today, who is also known as VMK89. How you doing, Neal?
Hi there, I'm doing good.
Alright, so first up on the agenda today, we gotta do the news grind, where we discuss noteworthy topics in the gaming world. So first up on the agenda today, we're a little bit behind the boat on this, and I apologize. This isn't exactly new news, but it's new to us since we're just starting out. But we've gotta talk about this. It is the news of the Nintendo Wii U and 3DS eShops being discontinued in March of 2023. So, Nintendo posted this sometime last month in February, and they posted this big old long article about it where it says, as of late March 2023, it will no longer be possible to make purchases in Nintendo eShop for the Wii U system and the Nintendo 3DS family of systems. It will also no longer be possible to download free content, including game demos. Furthermore, as this date draws closer, related services will cease to function. As of May 23, 2022, it will no longer be possible to use a credit card to add funds to an account in Nintendo eShop on the Wii U or the 3DS family of systems. As of August 29 of 2022, it will no longer be possible to use a Nintendo eShop card to add funds to an account in the Nintendo eShop on the Wii U or the 3DS. However, it will still be possible to redeem download codes until the full closure in late March of 2023. So, I have a lot of feelings about this, but I want to turn it over to the other guys first and see what they have to say. So, Lucas, what do you got to say here?
It feels a bit too soon for
Definitely.
the eShop going down.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Switch has been out for 2 years at this point, but
it's actually
more than that.
2017. The Switch is going on 5 years old now.
close enough.
Yeah,
the 90s were a decade ago, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it still feels too close to the launch of the Switch to be canceling or closing down the eShop for the last generation.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is this was like a decade old. The Wii Wii U is a decade old.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, that does seem longer than it has been, but I think that is part of it, that it doesn't it's processing time. But at the same time, I feel like, when did the Wii get discontinued? The
Wii was discontinued in 2019, I believe, was when they shut down that eShop. So we're looking at a 3-year gap between the Wii closing and the Wii U 3DS closing. And if you think about it, the Wii went on a lot longer than the Wii U and 3DS have in the grand scheme of things, because the Wii launched in late 2005, early 2006?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to Google that for sure, but it was definitely when I was in elementary school, so that was 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
I was old enough.
It looks like, as a whole, the 3DS family was discontinued in September of 2020, but
holy cow.
Yeah,
that's
that was only 2 years ago, and they're ending support for a system that they were still producing up until 2 years ago.
Yeah, it all just feels way too soon, and this is just kind of it harkens to the fact that Nintendo doesn't really care about supporting their legacy hardware so long as they have you on the current platform as a paying customer. And I'm not really a fan of that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I'm not really either.
Like, and it's compounded by the fact that they take such a strong stance when it comes to emulation of their games. Like, piracy in and of itself, just push that aside for a second. Just even emulating games that you own, they take such a strong stance against it, but then they don't give you the avenue to purchase their games on a legitimate marketplace.
Yeah, so many virtual games are going to be lost. I keep bringing up Earthbound, but that game really matters to me.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and they did just put that on Nintendo Online, but again, now you've got to pay into a subscription service if you want access to that game after March of next year. If you want access to Earthbound at a reasonable price, you're stuck in a subscription model.
Right. And
I hate software as a service.
I do too. Yeah.
Rip Creative Cloud fans.
Yep. Creative Cloud is what has ruined it for me because it is awful. But I'm trapped in it, basically.
Yep. But like someone went and like tallied it up, and there are literally thousands of digital only games between the two systems that just will cease to exist essentially after this goes down. And it's not just affecting games that are already out, but it's like some people are actually still developing games for these systems, believe it or not. I don't know so much about the Wii U, but I have an article here from Nintendo Life. Indie dev cancels a roguelike horror game for the 3DS in response to Nintendo's eShop closure. It says, the decision was made on our behalf by Nintendo, is the tagline on that. So, it's, the developer is named Otyugra Games, probably butchered the pronunciation. It's Otyugra Games. And they were working on a roguelike horror game called Dream Prison Wanderer for the 3DS. And they just had to outright cancel it because there's no point in putting any further development energy into developing this game on a system where a year from now, nobody's going to be able to play it. And two, I just want to also point out, like, they're also releasing this game, I think, on Steam, I think it said. So it's like, it's not like the 3DS is like the only place you'll be able to play this game, but the 3DS itself just lends to unique gameplay experiences that you won't get anywhere else.
Yeah, from what I read in the article, it looked like they were trying to take advantage of some of the unique stuff that the 3DS hardware gives you.
Right. And also reading this, it looks like there's some background behind the scenes stuff going behind Nintendo, because like it said like an NDA that they couldn't talk about everything that was going on behind their decision to do this. So like there might be something more going on at Nintendo that's causing this Wii U to end so soon.
Interesting.
That is interesting. But still, does not change the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to close down. So, like, maybe I understand that the Wii U was like a complete and total flop. And obviously, nobody's developing for that anymore. Nobody's really putting much energy into it anymore. But, like, yes, it costs money for Nintendo to maintain that marketplace, like server costs, stuff like that. But you think about the amount of money that Nintendo is raking in on a daily basis, on a monthly basis from their subscription services and stuff. Like, whatever cost of upkeep there is for these servers is like nothing compared to, like, it's barely a dent in the pocketbook to keep these servers online for the people that want to be able to go back and experience some of these digital only titles.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I'm no industry professional, but like the profit margin behind a digital marketplace item seems like it would be pretty high, just because you don't have to distribute anything on any sort of physical media. Like, you're paying for essentially a file download.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's on the end user to buy any sort of storage medium that they might need for that, whether it be like a external drive or a SD card.
And do we know yet what, like, emulating these virtual games that are exclusively on the virtual, what is it, virtual console on Wii U? Is there any way to emulate those games, or is it just straight up that are
I
lost to the
believe,
sands of time?
like I can't really, obviously we can't direct anybody to a place, but I think there probably are some databases with, like, people have compiled databases with all of these files that you can download, and if you have a hacked Wii U or 3DS, you can load them onto the
It is
console in that
possible.
manner. But
But
yeah,
still, that's emulating, and
yeah,
lots of people aren't going to do that.
yeah, a
Whether
lot of
it's
people, yeah, because like, I have a hacked 3DS. It is a fairly straightforward process, but I also admit, like, I have a little bit of a, like, I obviously have a more than casual understanding of these systems and stuff, so it was easy for me to follow along and figure out what to do with this. But someone that's just, say, March 24, 2023, somebody goes out and he buys his first 3DS, and he's like, all right, so I want to check out some of these games that I've been missing out on for all these years. Finally, like, I finally get a chance to check these games out. You go on, and that eShop is just not there. And then what? It's like, well, now you got to track down physical copies, and that brings us to another point. It's like, what this is going to do to the prices of physical games on these consoles, what it's already doing to the prices of physical games on these consoles, because they aren't going to stay low.
No.
Nope.
And to be fair, it will be like current, like, older consoles. They only have physical releases, but the issue with that is, especially with the Wii U games were not printed as much as, like, say, a PlayStation 2 game.
Yeah. One of the downsides of a console not having a very strong market presence.
Right. And unfortunately, the games you want, even on older consoles, are going to be more expensive. And now with the whole COVID thing making game prices go way up, it's going to be way worse than it was ever for me when I was buying, like, GameCube games and PlayStation 2 stuff.
It's kind of why I wish that the video game market would take a cue from, like, the music industry and, like, start doing reissues of games on physical media. Like, like, even just recently in the last couple of years, labels have been re-releasing old albums on, like, not just CD and digital download, but also on older formats like cassette and vinyl. And I would be okay paying, like, new game price for, like, a brand new copy of, Mega Man X3 on the Super Nintendo. Like,
right.
Well, can you imagine, like, if they just made a reissue Earthbound on a physical SNES cartridge? Like, they don't even have to, like, commit to a large mass production run. Do, like, a limited run of, like, 5,000 cartridges of Earthbound on the SNES. Can you imagine what that would do for that game?
People would be willing to pay $100, and they'd be like, "This is totally fine."
Easy. Yeah, they could sit there, they could put it on their official e-store for $100 USD for a reissue copy of Earthbound, limit 5,000. And yeah, it'd be huge. Like, I think they're just leaving so much money on the table by just adopting the subscription business model that they have right now. Like, yeah, obviously subscription models bring so much revenue in. Like, just look at Game Pass. I mean, Microsoft basically, like, they don't even need a physical Xbox console anymore. Like, they don't need physical Xbox games to sell at all anymore because Game Pass makes them so much money. Like, I
Right.
understand that, but at the same time, they're not abandoning the medium at all. Like, you can still go on an Xbox right now and you can buy a original Xbox game and play it on your Xbox Series on their digital marketplace. Like, I just don't understand what it is about Nintendo that they're just so stuck in their ways when it comes to making their old games available easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it necessarily comes with being like the original, like when the first Nintendo, the NES first came out, like they're the only ones that still exist today, and they're like, well, this has worked for us. And it's like, no, look at Sony and look at Microsoft. They are doing really well. They're being much more modern, and Nintendo just doesn't want to do it for whatever
Yep.
reason.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like, well, I know I personally have been just trying to stay ahead of the curve ever since they made this announcement. I've been picking up 2 or 3, sometimes more 3DS games a week, just trying to stay ahead of these price spikes and stuff. Like, I'm happy to have them in my collection now, but it's like just kind of it's altered the timetable at which I wanted to get them, as
Right.
opposed to just being
Yeah.
able to pick up one every now and then as I feel like I need a new game to play. Now it's like I feel like it's like I gotta get as many, like, just games that I think maybe at some point in my life I might want to play. I pick it up
Right.
just so I know I have it there in my collection ready to go, so that way when the time comes, I don't have to worry about logging into an eShop that doesn't exist anymore when I finally want to play that game.
Right.
But anyway, should we move on to our next topic now?
I feel like we should. We've ranted
All
enough
right.
about this.
Yeah.
All
we're
right,
mad about that Nintendo now.
All right. So now let's get mad at something else. Man, we're first episode, we're already bringing all these freaking controversial topics in here, but you know what? What can you do? It's gaming news in 2022.
Yep.
All right. So now let's move on to the next controversy, because this one
This
This
one's
one
a
is-
good one.
oh man, this one really
Good
hit
bad one.
this one really hit home with me because I am a huge fan of the Final Fantasy franchise, and I was really looking forward to this game. When they announced it, it looked really good. So
I mean,
we're
where
talking
could you go wrong?
I know. So we're talking about Chocobo GP Racing on the Nintendo Switch. So we have an article here from Kotaku. Players rage as $50 Chocobo racing game tries to nickel and dime them. And yeah, it has been nickel and diamond for sure. So you spend $50 to buy the full version of this game, and you are immediately, as soon as you turn the game on, you are immediately shoved in the face with microtransactions and trying to get you onto their like expansion pass or their little battle pass equivalent type deal, where for I think so they use a digital, their currency is called Mithril in the game.
Mithril.
And-
Yep.
And you get a weekly login bonus. Like immediately, the first thing you see when you turn on the game is weekly login bonus plus 50 Mithril. So they're already trying to direct you and coach you into going onto their marketplace. And then they try to get you to purchase their battle pass by showing it's like, hey, you want to play as Cloud? You want to play as Squall? All right, well, buy our season 1 pass here, and you'll get to play as Cloud and you'll get to play as Squall. But then you realize that Cloud is locked to level 60 at the very end of this prize pass. So, like, you still have to, like, you pay the money to unlock the ability to play as Cloud, but you still have to grind it out and unlock him afterward.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they
A
should not.
giant load of expletive redacted.
Yeah. Yeah. That ad in that it says to obtain Cloud, to obtain Squall. And it's like, okay, technically you didn't lie, but geez, that's manipulative.
right.
Yeah. And this isn't even like a free to play game like, say, Mega Man X Dive or Phantasy Star Online 2 that have
And like,
gotcha mechanics to get prizes. Like, this is a $50 paid game.
Yeah.
I don't know how they thought they could get away with this without
It's
fans being trashing the game online and nobody buying it.
Yeah, so we have a tweet here in that Kotaku article. This person says, so after about an hour of playing in the online mode in Chocobo GP, I managed to win one of its tournaments. And by the end of that time, I'm only at level 7 for the battle pass. You need to get to level 60 to unlock Cloud. So after, like, that to me, like, an hour for 7 levels is like right on the edge of what I would consider decent. But at the same time, I would also assume that as you go up in higher levels, the more and more it takes to get to the next level. So I can see after another
there's no
hour,
way they
this
don't have that on an experience curve.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can see like on after another hour, this person's probably only like level 9, level 10.
Right.
And it's like,
And like paying money, clicking on a thing that says you can obtain Cloud with this, and then having to wait, like, even if there isn't an experience curve, it's about 10 hours of gameplay. And yeah. So with an experience curve, considering that, it's like ridiculous.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could actually just make a better game and have a reasonable way of unlocking characters for that much gameplay requirement.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like and Square Enix, they tried to respond to all the backlash and stuff, and I put an emphasis on tried because basically here was the takeaway from their response. So all players get an extra 500 mithril. So, oh hey, we're sorry, but about the marketplace, but here's some more stuff so you can go back into the marketplace. Starting in Season 2, Mithril will be a reward in the prize pass. So that could potentially be a way to even it out so that way you gain enough Mithril during the course of the prize pass to be able to purchase the following season. Obviously, that remains to be seen. The way Square Enix has been kind of tracking lately with their live service games, it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't work that way. Current XP requirements to level up in the prize pass have been significantly reduced. New courses will be added in Season 2 for all player, and balance changes won't arrive until Season 2. So you're still going to have to go all the way through Season 1 with the current model the way it is before you really get to see anything, any potential for some positive uptick on there.
Yeah, and I had mentioned Mega Man X Dive before, but who's to say that Square isn't going to pull something like Capcom did and make, like, have what is essentially two different versions of their, like, paid currency? Because you can get the paid currency as a prize in Mega Man X Dive, but then certain items in the shop you only can purchase using the paid version of the paid currency and not the prize version of the currency.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure. It's like, this just this whole situation just makes me so upset because I love Square Enix. Like, obviously, like Final Fantasy, like, is one of the most beloved franchises of all time, and to see them bastardize it in this way would just this was supposed to be a kids game. Like, can you imagine if Nintendo went up with Mario Kart and tried to pull this? Like, I know they had like the Mario
Almost say
Kart.
that they did with Mario
They
Kart
had
Tour, but that was a
yeah
free to play. That's not
yeah
a
it was
$50 game.
yeah it was a free to play mobile game. So it's like there is a free version of Chocobo GP called GP Lite. But that's so stripped back, you might as well just buy the full version for $50 if you want to play the game at all. And then in addition to that, to strap it all on there. If this game was 100% free to play as it sits, it would be okay.
It'd be
It's
fun.
like that.
Yeah.
That's how you want to monetize this game? Fine. I don't really like the free to play model on most games, but fine. If that is your primary monetization for this game, then go for it. But don't charge me $50 up front for something if you're going to pull that on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the same issue that I have with DLC in games in general. It's like, I want to buy a game. I don't want to buy a game and then buy more parts of the game.
Yeah.
I
I agree.
depends.
I do not like free to play.
Yeah. As far as the DLC goes, it does depend on the DLC because some developers, at least back when in the 360 era, like a DLC expansion was a genuine expansion of the game. It wasn't just we left this out of the game so that way we can charge you for it later type deal or something
Right.
like or
Like
here we are.
the DLC for Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U. Like that was stuff that wasn't originally made, but people loved it so much that they were like, let's make more tracks, we can do this now. And
Right,
even
or
Smash
like
Bros. In the same way.
Yeah.
right, or like the DLC for BioWare games comes to mind, like Mass Effect and I think Dragon Age had some pretty good DLC too, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I played Dragon Age Origins.
Or how
But
about
The
that
other
time that General Mills made Chex Quest Episode 2 as a free download?
value.
there's another thing here that does get me, which is that they left out the free to play options or the free to play currency stuff in critic or review copies for games.
Yeah, that
yeah,
is.
yeah, I completely forgot to bring that up, but yeah, so basically none of the reviewers knew that these microtransactions were in the game because Square had shut that down for their review copies.
Yep.
So
Yep.
everyone that
is
reviewed this game,
incredibly misleading.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like everybody
Yeah.
that reviewed this game pre-launch, like a lot of people actually had to go back after the game launched and edit their reviews with that stuff in mind because Square Enix just decided to pull a fast one on them.
Yeah. Sega did a similar thing with the game Sonic Runners, which now just straight up doesn't exist because it went over so badly.
Ew.
They released a mobile game that in the review copies did not have microtransaction. And once it launched, they added microtransactions. And people were really mad. They hated it. Like the base game was fun. Like sounds similar situation here. And people wanted it out. They ended up just canceling the game. The thing was that game was still a free to play game. Like the issue was that the critics had not known, and that was the scuffle. It wasn't even paid. So this is even worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I wonder if the same thing might happen to this of like Square just is like, this is too much of a mess. We can't fix this. People aren't buying it. We'll just discontinue it. And I guess it is a physical game, so I guess that is different. How they would navigate that.
Right. It
So
does make you it does make you wonder like what's going on at Square Enix right now though, because like they've been hitting some huge misses lately. Like there's this Chocobo GP, Babylon's Fall, which was made by Platinum Games, which is typically like a fantastic developer of action games and stuff. That was a flop. And there was one more, I forget what it was. Oh yeah, Marvel's Avengers. Like just 3 games almost back to back to back that are just like like all these live service games where they keep trying to cram it in there, that it just seems like an afterthought type thing. It's like the game wasn't made for it, but someone higher up the chain there at Square Enix was like, well, we need to monetize these games, so put live service stuff in them.
Right.
Right. Because charging a huge premium upfront for the game in general isn't monetization enough.
Right.
It's like it baffles me that this company could put out a game as like universally hailed as a great game, like Triangle Strategy, that's gotten phenomenal reviews. I played it. The game is phenomenal. It's beautiful with their 2D HD engine that they got going on. Just all around flawless game. And then the same company turns around and puts out Marvel's Avengers, Babylon's Fall, and now Chocobo GP. Like, what is going on over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems really strange from a company that doesn't have to act like that because they can just release a new Final Fantasy game and be set for another 5 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to something a little bit more positive. Let's move on to our main discussion, our favorite games. So, in this section, we are just going to go over our top 3 favorite games of all time and just give a brief summary of them. And I feel like for a first episode, that's probably a pretty good topic just to kind of get to know us all and what kind of games we like. Anyway, let's dive right into it. Lucas, what's your number 3?
My number 3 favorite is Metroid Prime on the GameCube. Or on the Prime Trilogy version, if you happen to have that. Any Prime's good Prime, except for Prime 2. I don't like it. No, the first one's just better. Yeah, whatever. Prime 1's better. Deal with it. Like it was my first introduction to like first-person games in general. Like I'd never played any of the classic first-person shooters that kind of preceded Metroid Prime, like GoldenEye or Perfect Dark or stuff like Doom. Which, I mean, Doom nowadays is one of my favorites, but like it's not quite enough to crack the top 3. Yeah, it was also kind of an introduction to learning speedrunning strategies as well for me. It's actually, it's not great by any means, but like my personal best is under the 3-hour mark. And that's all just like learning in-game strategy or like sequence breaks without even having to go out of bounds, like some of the more complex stuff. And yeah,
I mean, 3 hours is pretty impressive to me because if I were trying to try and play through Metroid Prime, it would probably take me like 12 hours.
Yeah. It's funny you should mention 12 hours specifically because that's about how long it took me to get through it when I was replaying the games for the first time in 3 or 4 years on the Metroid Prime Trilogy version, because I actually like made the mistake of loaning my original disc to a friend and then never got it back. So finally it was back like when Metroid Prime Trilogy Collector's Edition on the Wii came out was when I first played through it again and not only completed it at I think 76% items collected at 12 hours 14 minutes, but then just by sheer coincidence, when I played through Prime 2 again on Prime Trilogy, I ended up with the exact same item collection and like in-game time.
That's whack.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole Prime trilogy is really fun, but like Metroid Prime 1 is the one that sticks out in my mind the most, and it's the one that I go back to whenever I need the desire to play Metroid Prime.
Yeah, the Metroid Prime games are really cool. I really need to devote some time to them after having played through most of the 2D ones recently. Neal, let's move over to you. What do you got?
I actually did this. I always have this philosophy of there are 3 ways to judge a game, which is the best, the favorite, and the most fun. And to explain that, the best is like the objective. This is the most well-made game that I've ever played. And an example of this is that Super Metroid is a great game design, but I haven't played enough of that game to say that I've played it and that I could include it on this list. I got a favorite game, which is like just completely subjective. This is what I absolutely love playing, and it doesn't matter how flawed the game is. An example of this is Sonic Advance 2 is my favorite Sonic game, even though it has a lot of flaws and probably isn't my best, what I consider the best Sonic game. And then there's Funnest, which is the most enjoyable, the one I've played the most, the one I've played the most with others, the one I just find fun to play. Doesn't matter about flaws, doesn't matter how well it's made, doesn't matter if I necessarily consider it one of my most treasured games. Like for instance, Sonic 06's multiplayer is actually really fun. I really enjoyed playing that with friends.
I had no idea Sonic 06 had a multiplayer mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is just wild
Yeah.
to me.
It has the same multiplayer mode that Sonic Adventure 2 has.
Nice.
Basically. And you can play through all the levels that are like slightly modified, and it's not complete because like some sections you can't beat with each of the 3 main characters. So, because that game was not finished.
Sounds like Sonic 06.
Yeah, exactly.
Give that a try sometime.
Yeah, we should. I don't know who has Sonic 06.
I have a license plate on my car that is Sonic 06.
That's true.
I did it for the memes.
Yeah, I need to get a
I
vanity
probably
plate.
shouldn't broadcast that, huh? Whatever.
Anyway.
What are you gonna do? Steal my car?
I could steal your car. I don't have any experience in that, but I could try. Anyway, back on topic. I'm going to start with the best game, which actually just recently changed to Celeste. Celeste is a really, really good game. I have recently beat it for the second time, and I'm actually playing through it a third time on the Switch because I purchased it on Steam first and am now playing it on the Switch. I recommend not buying it on the Switch because the Switch's Joy-Con D-pad sucks for this kind of game. But I played it on Steam first with a PS4.
Also, you'd be buying a digital game on the Switch, which is a Nintendo platform, which means as soon as the Switch isn't Nintendo's primary platform anymore, well, you know what's gonna happen to it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, a PS4 controller has a better D-pad for it, and that's what I used at first. It is really hard. They throw tons of mechanics at you, and like every level, for one thing, the levels are really long. They're divided up into screens, and you restart the screen every time you die. So it is forgiving, but like getting through each screen is really hard, and I had to take a lot of breaks when I got stuck on screens. The hotel level was really hard. I don't want to spoil it, but the game's story is about depression, and there's like mechanics of like playing depression in the game. And the before the very last level, after you beat one of the bosses, there's a story moment that combines with a gameplay element unlocking, and it is amazing. If you've played the game, you probably know what I'm talking about. And yeah, it's a recent game because my original best game since I was in high school was always Mother 3, because Mother 3 is a great game with an emotional story as well.
It's so good.
It's great. We could go on for hours, probably, you and me, Lucas, just talking
Yeah,
about Mother 3.
definitely. It's like, I
Just-
mean, I share a name with the main character.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, Celeste is good. I know Colin wants to play it. You
Yeah, I picked it up in the Ukraine bundle last week. So I own it. It's on the list. I'm just playing so much right now. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I definitely want to try it.
Yeah. So that's Celeste. That's my best game. It's not really 3, because these are all separate scoreboards. So
Yeah, you did the homework wrong.
all right, moving on to Colin.
All right. My number 3, it's Persona 5. Specifically the reissue with additional content, Persona 5 Royal, which, believe it or not, adds an additional freaking 20 hours to the campaign on its own. This game, I just walked into GameStop one day and they had the special edition steelbook for Persona 5 Royal sitting on the shelf and it was on sale. I think it was like $30. I was like, all right, well, I had already played a little bit of Persona 4 beforehand, so I had a little bit of familiarity with the franchise and I knew I liked it. I was like, yeah, I'll try this one out, and oh my god. This game is fantastic. It's one of the coolest, most stylish games I have ever played. Everything from the graphics to the character designs, the music, everything is just stylish. Like, I can't even describe it with another. There is no better word to describe it than the word stylish. It's just all the characters look so cool. The main character, he's like dressed in this black trench coat with red gloves and this really cool face mask. And
Yeah, I've seen
oh,
a animation YouTuber talk about that video or that game's animation of like how they do such a long amount of gameplay with the animation. Like the way they did it was so efficient that they could max out all this gameplay. Even though they have this really cool looking animation, it's actually easy to produce. So Persona 5 looks really interesting to me.
yeah, it's so good. And I think part of what really drew me to it and what drew me to Persona 4 before it is like I kind of have this weird soft spot for like these slice of life animes, and like I don't know if it's just because I like never fully outgrew my high school years or what, but I really have a soft spot for those animes that's just like a bunch of high school kids that are passionate about something, and that's kind of what you get in Persona. And in Persona 5, you're you're a group of high school kids that call themselves the Phantom Thieves, and what they do basically is they go inside the hearts of these people that have been corrupted by all their desires like greed and jealousy and gluttony, stuff like that. And they go through their minds and, quote, steal their heart, which in turn kind of purifies them, makes them confess their crimes, and they kind of go back to their former selves before they were corrupted. Um,
Huh.
so it's just this really cool premise for a story. But throughout the game, focuses a lot on building relationships and stuff with your friends, and it uses what's called the confidant system. So the better your relationship gets with a character, like a party member, the more and like each confidant is tied to a specific class of persona. So basically what that does is you focus on building relationships with characters, and obviously it goes in like there's a romance subplot obviously with multiple characters that you can go down if you want to and stuff like that. But really, like even like the non-romanceable characters, you just feel so compelled to engage in activities with them and grow your relationship with them, because every character in this game is so well written that they feel just like your best friend you're going and like shooting pool with and stuff after school one night, or you're going shopping with someone after school and stuff. It's just like every like even with minor characters, they all have their own little miniature story within the main campaign that plays out. So when you get to the end of that story, there's a huge payoff for you. Especially with like the party members, where they get access to more powerful personas and abilities and stuff like that. But even the non-party members, they give you, just once you max out their confidant rank, if you try to make a persona that's the same class as what they're tied to, you get a massive experience and ability bonus on top of just creating it. It's such a well-made game, and even if you don't have time for the 123 hours that the campaign took me to complete, there is an anime series adaptation of the game that runs through. It doesn't have the extra content from Royal, it just goes through the base game, but it's so worth watching. Like, the music in this game is phenomenal. It has this, I think her name is Lynn, Lyn, and she performs vocals. Yeah, she performs vocals on several tracks, and she's just got this phenomenal voice. The music, it's cool, it's really jazzy, but it's got this really nice style to it. For the anime, she recorded 2 additional songs to serve as openings for the first and second halves of the season. I would argue those are better than all the songs from the game. They're so good. So even if you don't want to play through a 100+ hour JRPG, definitely go check out Persona 5 the animation, because it's so good. And yeah, let's move on to our number 2s now. Lucas, number 2.
I see your RPG that you've put hundreds of hours into, and I will raise you one that I have put thousands of hours into. And that would be Phantasy Star Online, the original one. Or more specifically, episodes 1 and 2 plus on the GameCube. It's a game that I have been playing since not high school, not middle school, but all the way back in 4th grade was when I was introduced to this game.
Mother of God.
I have put over 1,000 hours on just my primary character, and then on top of that, I have gone so far as to make a character of each of the other 11 classes, all of them having unique section IDs even to get all of the different drop tables available to me. And like, it's a game that still makes me emotional even after over a decade of playing it. Like, I had only just recently gone through and completed the true ending to the Seat of the Heart quest in episode 2. I started crying because it was so much emotion in that storyline. And like, there's stuff that its successor game, Phantasy Star Online 2, does well, but it doesn't quite capture it the same way that the original introduced it. Like the mag development system, so you can feed and level balance your mags a certain way, and they'll evolve into rare mags, and it's just really cool. I've item hunted for hours. I've beaten ultimate mode with my main character. I'm trying to do that with some of the other characters that I have, and like I could just play this game for days on end.
Yeah, the original PSO is really fun. I have a very, very funny story regarding the original PSO. So the first time I played this game, I was like 11 or 12 or so. I played it on the Dreamcast at my buddy's house. His brother had all the latest game consoles, so when he got the Dreamcast, he had PSO, and he let us play it once. And I thought, because I was like 11 years old, that the online on the title of the game, I thought that meant that the game was just always online and every NPC was also a real person. So we were like harassing this NPC, the guy with the big hat. I forget what his name was, but in one of the missions, and his brother took the controller back and had the little keypad for his Dreamcast controller. And he's like, no, wait. So he started typing in an apology to the NPC like it was a real person in the chat. And it was just, it's like my fondest memory of that entire game.
Yeah.
Honestly, online isn't even something that I ever experienced with Phantasy Star Online.
Obviously for the sequel, though, right? Because I remember you all playing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like the original, the extent of my experience online is maybe setting up a private Blueburst server every once in a while, but otherwise, I never played the game online. This was all logged. All of these hours were logged offline in the single player mode.
Goodness, that's a lot of...
Wow. And the clock keeps ticking.
Yep.
Jeez. I don't even know if I have a game that's got that many consecutive
I know
hours.
I do.
Anyway, Neal, what do you got next?
So I'm gonna jump. We're talking about PSO. I was actually in a stream, watching a stream by the Sonic the Hedgehog channel. They did live streams for to play games and announce news. But they would look at the chat and shout out to the chat, and a lot of the chat was actually yelling at them to release PSO2. And the PR guys for Sega or for Sonic Team were like, "Well, that's not really our department, but we'll talk to them and tell them that that's what you guys are expressing." And then after that, PSO2 released for yeah.
And not only that, it had a bundle with Sonic the Hedgehog costumes. And even though it was a free-to-play game, I paid that $60 and I dressed up my character as Sonic.
Yeah, well,
worth it.
I bring this up because baby.
Hi, baby.
We're gonna jump over to my funnest game, which is Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It is one game. I will not argue that. You don't get a choice. It's one game. It was developed as one game. It's one game. But yeah, I've played a lot of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I think it's the best Sonic game, just straight up. Generations is good. Like Generations a lot. Did not beat it all the way. It has great mechanics and all, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles is just a solid package. One of the best games of all time as well. But there's a long list of that, obviously, since I don't think it's my best game. But Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's like Sonic 2, but like to the 10th degree. They amp up everything in the third game. The levels are huge. You can run out of time in Marble Garden. It's just a huge game, and there's at least 12 levels, I want to say. And Marble Garden is probably a stumbling point for me. That's not a great level. There's a lot of weird mechanics in that level. But once you get past that, Carnival Night is a lot of fun. I just really love Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I've had the most fun with it. I played the classic games both on my phone once I was in 10th grade, and my first dip into the classic games was Sonic 1 for the Genesis, which is something I've played a Let's Play of. But that's an interesting game to get into just because it's Sonic 1, which is a great game and it has some of the best level design in Sonic games, but also it's terrible at the same time. So like it's fun if you look for the right thing. I don't know. But I actually prefer Sonic 1 over Sonic 2. But Sonic 3 and Knuckles is definitely my favorite. And I haven't played enough of Mania to say that it's better or worse than Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I feel like Mania has so many references in it to other games that like part of the enjoyment of Mania came out of I've played Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I've played Sonic 2, I've played Sonic Advance. There's a reference in Sonic Mania to Sonic Advance. In Studiopolis.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Yeah. Sonic Mania is great, don't get me wrong, and I know there's a lot of people that argue about this because the Sonic fandom is awful. It can be great, but it can also be awful. It's so fractured. They reboot the series constantly, and that just screws everything up. As opposed to Mario, where they keep everything. Yeah, Mario keeps everything in order. Mario isn't gonna have a great movie though. I'm excited that.
Yes.
I'm excited.
I just
Go ahead.
I feel so vindicated that for Sonic to have bad game after bad game after bad game after bad game, it just feels so great that we get a Sonic movie that is genuinely good.
Yeah.
When video game movies as a whole are terrible.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
It's awesome. And I love that the sequel is going to be Sonic 3 and Knuckles plot, because that's the best story they've ever told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that. There's so many references in those trailers already, and it's ridiculous. Did either of you catch the Mean Bean Brewery reference in the first trailer?
I think
yeah.
so.
God, that's a deep cut. That's great.
Yeah. I love you, Puyo Puyo spinoff.
Yeah. It was in the Mega Collection. That's where I played it. And speaking of Sonic Mania, they had a Puyo Puyo boss for Chemical Plant.
All right.
Which I loved.
Nice.
Actually got me into Puyo Puyo. But anyway, I've rambled about Sonic enough. This is going to happen. I should warn everybody. I rant about Sonic. I want a petition for a Sonic news segment. I won't go on for more than 10 minutes, I promise. But yeah, I'll toss this over to number 2 game.
All right. So my number 2, you're going to feel like I'm cheating, but hear me out. My number 2 is the Mass Effect trilogy as a whole, because it really does need to be, from a narrative standpoint, you need to experience all 3 of these games together to get the full story. It was designed that way, so that's my argument. I'm sticking to it. Mass Effect is such a special series to me. To me, it's basically the Star Wars of video games. It's this epic sci-fi, huge stakes, amazing storytelling, fun gameplay. Just everything about it is so good. Basically, you are Commander Shepard. You, at the beginning of Mass Effect 1, you create your Commander Shepard, and this is the person that you will carry from Mass Effect 1 into Mass Effect 2 into Mass Effect 3. All the way through the series, the same character that you created from day number 1. All of your choices throughout the series that you make, whether they're big or small, they carry in throughout the entire series. For instance, a character that you choose to spare all the way in the first game could show up in the final game at your side to aid you as a show of thanks. just the way that BioWare designed these games was absolutely genius. And then you get into the characters themselves, and this is some of the best character writing in any media. Well, I'm not going to go into books and stuff because I don't read a lot, but like in any like visual medium, like movies, TV, video games, stuff like that, this is some of the best character writing of all time. Just hands down. It's so good.
That is quite a statement.
It is, and I'm willing to I am willing to say it. Like I said, I won't go into books because I like obviously like Tolkien and stuff exists and like, but
Tolkien is
but yeah, in like
movies.
But it originated in books.
Okay.
You know
Well,
what
if
I mean?
we go there, then yeah,
like Tolkien.
that feels more.
Yeah,
fair.
like Tolkien to me. Tolkien. Like if something is like a book translated to movie, doesn't count as a movie.
Okay.
I count it as a book.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'll clear that up. Okay. But just these characters don't feel like they are just pieces of code that are just there to move the plot from point A to point B. They are your friends, your teammates, and they feel like real people with real authentic motivations, quirks, flaws, everything. And like in Mass Effect 2, the end of the game, you can die. Literally, it is a suicide mission. You know it right from the onset, right from the moment you boot up this game, that there is such high stakes at the end of this run that if you screw up, you will die. Your characters that you grew with throughout the game can die, and if they do die, you're not going to see them again in Mass Effect 3. That level of detail is just so refreshing and in gaming, and you just don't see that kind of detail anywhere. Like, there really aren't any other series out there like it where you just carry one character and all your choices and all your relationships and stuff, and it just builds throughout a trilogy. You don't see that in games outside of Mass Effect, and it's just something I've always loved about it. It grabbed me from the second I first put that Mass Effect 1 disc in my Xbox 360 way back in 2008. I have beaten all of these games at least a dozen times, and it's just something I never get tired of going back to.
Yeah, there is no other game that does that. You're right.
Yeah, like the closest I can think of is maybe like Quest for Glory back in the MS-DOS days, and that was maybe carry your character forward to the next game, but nothing to that level of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can like interact with games, like going back to Sonic. You can move chows from like Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure between the two Sonic Adventure games, and there's lots of games that do that sort of thing. You have
that
save
reminds
files.
me something of from PSO actually. You could get a exclusive Tails Chow in a demo of the Sonic Adventure 2 Chow Garden in PSO.
There's lots of like,
Nice.
if you have a save file of this game on your memory card, you can have this, but there's never a like this game is integrated into like through the story specifically.
Right.
There's lock-on technology, but that's
that lock-on technology, you can't beat it. Oh man, okay,
is
Lucas.
Mass Effect the successor to lock-on technology?
It kind of is.
You heard it here first. Mass Effect is the successor to Sega's lock-on technology. Oh my god. Lucas, take us away to your number one.
See, my number one game is 3D Mark.
It's not a game.
What do you mean it's not a game? It has a leaderboard. You can get a high score in it. I have several high scores in it.
No,
but,
no, it's not a game. Stop. No.
He brings this up a lot.
I'm number 1 in Time Spy Extreme for Ryzen 7 3700X and RX 580 single card.
I'm not arguing
No.
that, but that doesn't make it a game. There's a leaderboard in solving Rubik's cubes. That's not a game. That's just a hobby.
Okay. My real number 1 is good old Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo.
I could get behind
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Neal had mentioned it before. It is a great game. It is
Finish it. You need to finish
my
it.
favorite game of all time. It does such a good job of like teaching gameplay mechanics through gameplay rather than trying to handhold you into learning how to play it or like telling you flat out how to do stuff. Like as soon as you collect the morph ball, you're introduced to a section of, hey, here's how you use the morph ball.
Yep.
Or collecting the first missile pack, and then there's a missile door right next or right in the very next room for you to try those missiles out on.
Hi, maybe.
And
The baby.
yeah, she's getting kind of fussy. The baby, the baby, the baby, the baby, the deleter. Who is MB?
It is fitting that she chooses to speak up during the Metroid section.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
The baby.
The baby.
Just like Samus, I will do everything in my power to protect the baby.
The baby.
Hopefully Mother Brain doesn't gigantify her and then subsequently destroy her.
Oh no. Be bad. Alright, Neal. What do you got for number 1?
So my favorite game is subjective, and I have a shorter rant about it because it is Incredible Machine, which is an old PC CD game that I had as a kid. And that is mostly why it's my favorite game, because I played it a ton as a kid. Incredible Machine is a puzzle game where they give you a ton of parts, and you can build a Rube Goldberg machine, or you can play through the levels, which are like pre-built Rube Goldberg machines that are missing parts. And it's all sorts of crazy stuff like bowling balls, bike pumps, there's balloons, and all these things interact with each other in different ways. And it's really cool. There's quite a learning curve because there's like 100 tutorial levels introducing each part to you. But once you get into it, you can do so much in this game, and it's great. It has its own make your own puzzle stuff. I made a ton of those back in the day. There's a human that you can move around named Mel, and I made Super Mel because I was also into Super Neal, which was my childhood alter ego.
It does look
But
like
yeah,
a pretty neat game.
Yeah, it's got a great soundtrack too. Progressive rock is my favorite off of that. They named everything based on genres. So there was like a hip hop song that was just called hip hop. There was a country song called
Bad.
Hayseed. What?
Bad.
Actually, it was actually okay. I kind of liked that one.
Huh.
I don't like country, but it did a sort of like Larry the Cable Guy style redneck guy, just kind of ranting and singing. And I still quote
That's
that
very
song to this day. Yeah. But yeah, Tuna Loaf is one of my favorites. 60s rock is really good. It had a good soundtrack. The only other note I want to make is Contraption Maker is a game made by it's a Steam game made by the original creators of Incredible Machine, to kind of be the spiritual successor. It's in HD. With the more screen space, you can make huge puzzles. I haven't gotten into it as much, but if you want to support it that way, that gets money into the pockets of the people who made it, as opposed to just buying it off eBay. I do prefer
that out.
Yeah, I do prefer Incredible Machine, and I need to buy a disc off of eBay because mine is scratched.
Oh.
Yeah. That is how I ripped all the songs from. It's just It's a CD. It's how it used to work.
Yep. Even with
Um,
PlayStation 1 games.
Good old CD. Yeah. PS1
Yeah.
games were like that too.
Yep. Yeah, actually, there's a SoundCloud page of the people making Contraption Maker where they go through all the songs uh, that were on the Incredible Machine soundtrack, and you can download them there via that. And they have a little blurb about each one of like the making of it. It's pretty cool. But throwing it over to Colin.
All right. So don't get mad at me, but my number one game is a 3-way tie.
Oh my gosh!
Really?
I was gonna say I'm cheating because I'm bringing up Mother 3, and you've got what 7 games?
Yeah.
Well, just deal with it. These 3 games exist in a constant rotation in my brain. That there's really like one will be my favorite game for a moment, and then it'll flip around to the next, and they just rotate around and around and around. So I can never really narrow it down to just one. But those games are Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10. Since there's 3, I'm gonna try to not spend too much time talking about all of them, just like a couple points of each. But Final Fantasy VIII, what really stood out to me was initially I found I related quite a bit to Squall as a character. Not so much in the fact that he was such a dick, because he kind of was, but just like having trouble relating to other people and relating and like expressing yourself and how you feel. That's something when I first played this game, I was in high school, and I was high school, and it was something I struggled with, was expressing myself to people that were trying to relate to me and stuff. And that quality in Squall really stuck out to me. It's like, wow, I kind of feel like this character and stuff. And further on in the game, like being thrust into a leadership position that you don't necessarily feel ready for, like, or feel like that you can perform in and stuff like that. That's something that in multiple stages in my life that I've kind of experienced, like this, like taking on a leadership of this podcast and stuff. Like that was a pretty big step for me to just kind of like say, all right, let's just do it and stuff. It's something I've always kind of found myself in leadership positions, whether or not I wanted them. So that's another thing about Squall and stuff that I related to, and I really enjoyed that character. Just I wish he was a little bit less of a dick, because he'd be a little bit more likable that way. But what can you do? He's
gotta have flaws.
he's an edgelord, whatever.
I love edgelords.
But another thing that the game did that was really cool, really unique, was the way they handled summons and magic and stuff, and that you basically equip your summons to characters, and that unlocks the ability to use magic. And to use magic, you actually had to draw it out of the world, or draw it like these specific points on the world map, or you draw it out of enemies and stuff, and then you were able to
draw literally.
Not like drawing a picture, but like you suck it out of them, like drawing it out that way.
R.I.P. Realm fans.
I'm imagining Okami, and I'm like, that can't be right.
But yeah, so you like pull this magic out of enemies and out of points on the overworld, and then you could stockpile it, and you can cast it. But what was really cool about what you could do with it was, instead of casting it, you can actually equip it to stats like your health, your strength, your magic, your luck, stuff like that. And it raises those stats, and the amount each stat is raised depends on the type of spell that you junction to it. So like if you junction a fire spell to your health, it'll go up so much. But if you junction a cure spell to it, it'll go up even more. And then there are certain more powerful spells that have even larger increases. It was a really cool system, but in execution, it was really easy to exploit and just Like, there was level scaling
Oh.
in the game, so you didn't actually have to bother grinding to level up. The only thing that really mattered was your junctions and stuff. Basically, yeah, the game got a lot of flack because it was easy to exploit that, and it just made the game too easy. Blah 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 blah. But it was cool. It was something that would be cool if they brought it back and refined it a little bit, made it a little bit less easy to cheese and stuff. And then another thing that was cool about it was just like the way they built the world in that game. It was kind of like a off in the future, but not like too far off. It's like maybe like 20 years in the future or something like that. The kind of like time frames you're dealing with here. So like there was some really cool sci-fi stuff, but it was really grounded sci-fi. Like there's still cars and stuff in the game. You can drive cars in some areas of the world map and stuff. It was really cool. And then we'll move on to Final Fantasy 9 now. So Final Fantasy. Yeah, I said I would talk a little bit, and here we are.
I said that about Incredible Machine too, so I guess.
Yeah, so Final Fantasy 9 would really like. This is a game that it didn't really hit with me too much when I was younger. I got this game the same time I got Final Fantasy 8, and it didn't really hit with me back then. But as I've gotten older, the older I get, the more and more I appreciate this game. It starts out really lighthearted, but then it goes in over the course of the game to tackle like really, really heavy themes of life, death, loneliness, and just so many things in that space that it deals with is just so incredibly like touching and emotional. It's so good. And the battle system was pretty cool. So this is the first time since I want to say Final Fantasy 4. No, Final Fantasy 5, I think. It's the first time since No, Final Fantasy 6. Okay, this is the first time since Final Fantasy 6 that they returned to a 4-person party as opposed to 3, like they did with 7 and 8. And what was really unique about this battle system in particular is, I believe to this day, this is the only mainline Final Fantasy, barring the MMOs 11 and 14, that had a multiplayer aspect to it. So you could actually, in the original PlayStation release, I don't know if the re-releases have it or not, but you can go into the options and you could assign certain characters in your party to the second controller on your PlayStation. And that was really cool. I mean, it's
that
really
awesome, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish more RPGs had that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like, the second person is still just kind of sitting there in between battles, but if you're, like, in the middle of a grind, if you're just gonna go in and do, like, this huge section of grinding, just running around the overworld and stuff, and you want someone to kind of hang out with you in the process, it gives them something to do in the meantime and stuff.
Yeah, that was something really cool about Tales of Symphonia that my sister and I did, was that had the in-battle multiplayer, but like I didn't know there were any Final Fantasies with anything like that.
Yeah, and I think Final Fantasy IX is the only one that had it, and I'm gonna have to, I'm really planning on playing it again on the Switch really soon here. I'll have to double check when I get around to that, see if that still has the multiplayer option. But anyway, Final Fantasy X. This game I played, like, when I first played Final Fantasy X, I had played Final Fantasy VII when I was younger, but back then I was too young to really know what was going on. So it was basically just a really cool game. The guy had a cool sword, he had cool hair, and it was just a cool game with cool music and stuff. But Final Fantasy X was what really got me into the franchise, what really got me into RPGs as a whole, really. And to this day, I think, like, a lot of what I look for in an RPG kind of has to do with what I found in Final Fantasy X. Like, just the story is so emotional and well written. The voice acting, this is like the first time I ever experienced voice acting in a game, and yeah, it was not great by today's standards, but back then it's like this was one of the only games out there that was like 90% voice acted, and it was incredible to go from having to traditionally just read through walls of text, and that's how you consume the lore and the story of a game, to just suddenly it's all acted out in front of you like a movie. It just felt so cool. And the battle system in this one in particular, it's like the way you could swap characters in and out on the fly to adjust to varying conditions and stuff, and certain enemies having certain weaknesses and stuff that you can exploit. That was such a unique and cool way to handle the battle system. One of the best turn-based battle systems ever, period. The world was really cool, even though the story itself was really linear up until a certain point. But it was just it was so well designed that you never minded the linearity, just because within that it was so cool. Okay, I gotta talk about Blitzball though. Blitzball is freaking cool. It's like it's one of the best freaking mini games in a game, period. Like, there was some janky stuff about it. Like, it's not like there's like a random aspect in the math that kind of works against you at times that is really stupid. But the game itself, its concept is really freaking cool. I've spent literally like half of my playthrough every time I play through Final Fantasy X is just playing Blitzball, because it's just I love it so much. It is easily, of any mini game in a game that could get its own standalone game, Blitzball would be perfect for that. And it bothers me that Square hasn't done it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Blitzball was where I got stuck with Final Fantasy X. I just didn't get into the minigame, and I was like, okay, I want to play something else, unfortunately.
Because
I like
as long
RPGs.
as they don't charge $50 for it and then microtransaction it out the wazoo,
right?
they should do it.
Right? But like,
yeah,
the thing, like, it's really, really hard at the beginning. Basically,
is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So like that
I need
first,
to pick up that game again.
Yeah.
Man.
That first Blitzball match as part of the story that kind of introduces the game and stuff like that. That first Blitzball match, you're basically like, everything is stacked against you. Like, you almost are. It's designed for you to lose, basically, but you can win it. But the only way you can win it is to make sure you get the eject shot while you're on your way to Luca, because that's basically the only way that you can even score a goal on that team is with that shot.
Huh.
But once you get outside that initial match and stuff and start playing like just Blitzball on your own as a mini game and stuff, it gets easier as you go along. You recruit certain people to join your team and stuff. It's so much fun. But my final point on Final Fantasy X, this is the game that made me appreciate music in video games. Like, I always liked the music in video games. Like, my first game I ever owned was Super Mario World, and the music in that was fantastic, and obviously it got stuck in my head continuously. But Final Fantasy X was like the first time I realized that video game music could be something else, if that makes sense. Because everything was all like real instruments. Like the music in video games has always been good, but it wasn't until it made the jump to real actual instruments that it started to be like, oh yeah, this is freaking amazing. And then you go back and you listen to orchestrated versions of all those old soundtracks and stuff from the NES and SNES era of games. You hear that with real instruments, and it's just like, this is so good. Video game music is one of my absolute favorite genres of music because it's just so unique. Like,
yeah, I always enjoy covers of old games more than just like covers of new games, because it's like, this is what this could have sounded like.
Yeah,
like this is what the game or the musicians were making in their head when they designed it back in the 90s. So yeah,
I remember getting so obsessed with the music in this game that like I was like trying to like figure out some way to get the sheet music for the piano intro in the game and see if my aunt can learn how to play it, but I couldn't figure out how to get like actual sheet music for it, so that never happened. But it's like the game, like, yeah, that that was a real eye opener for me as far as video game music went. And ever since I played Final Fantasy X, I've just had this huge love and adoration, even more so than before, of music in video games. But
Heck yeah.
anyway, let's move on to one last little section here. That concludes our main topic. We have one last little section here. It's just going to be a quick, brief, what have we been playing right now? Just a few, like 1 or 2 games we've been playing recently, just a couple sentences about it, and then we'll call it a day on this show. So, Lucas, take it away. What have you been playing?
Well, I recently got the Best of Boomer Shooters bundle from Humble Bundle, and so I've been checking out some of those. In particular, Ion Fury by 3D Realms. It's so much of a love letter to like the 90s trio of Blood, Shadow Warrior, and Duke 3D, done by 3D Realms themselves. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it looked really cool based on like what you were playing last night. It looked really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked hilarious.
Neal, what
Awesome.
have you been playing?
Okay, so the fact that we're doing this on our first episode, this is kind of good because there's going to be 2 games every week that I'm always playing. And I get to describe them here because I'm not playing any other games right now. I'm just playing my normal 2 games, which are Minecraft. Everybody knows what Minecraft is.
What is Minecraft?
It's a game where you play a person who breaks blocks.
Oh.
You can do literally anything you want in it. You can program, you can design art, you can make video games, you can do whatever you want in Minecraft, but it's restricted into meter by meter cubes.
You can line a giant underground tunnel with blocks of TNT and then set it off and then crash the game because there's so much exploding all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm speaking from experience.
Heck yeah.
I've totally done that.
I've done that recently.
It's so
I've
fun.
used Redstone to implement relays and build logic circuits and construct entire computers.
I've done that recently too. Well, not entire computers, but logic circuits. But I play Minecraft every night. That's my go-to-bed game. The other game is Mario Kart. I'm always playing Mario Kart because me and my dad love playing Mario Kart together. And when we're not together, if one of us is by the Switch, he'll play time trials and record ghosts, and then I'll come back when I'm free and beat his ghosts. Hopefully, it's actually pretty good, so that doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, I'm excited for the new courses that are coming out. I got $20 in my Nintendo account, and I'm gonna buy those right after this podcast, and hopefully they're good.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward to your verdict in episode 2.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, can't wait for episode 2.
Yeah. All right.
But before we talk about that, let's talk to Colin.
Oh, yeah. I guess the more accurate thing for me would be what haven't I been playing, because I've been bouncing between half a dozen games over the last couple weeks. Yeah. So I'm just going to stick with the 2 games that I have played within the last 24 hours. One of which
Okay.
one of which is Shin Megami Tensei 5 on the Switch. Really cool game. It didn't really stick with me at first. The first few hours of the game are like really, really grindy, both from like a narrative standpoint and just a gameplay standpoint. Like it's a hard turn-based RPG. Lots of grinding involved to get yourself up to speed where you should be for boss fights and stuff like that. And it wasn't gripping me at first, but finally I got to a point last night where it's like, all right, this is getting a little bit interesting now. I think I'll stick with this for a little while. I don't know if this is a game that I'm just going to play straight through before I move on to something else, or if it's something I'm probably just going to bounce between, play a few hours here and there, put it down for a little while and come back to it, sort of thing. But yeah, it's a good game. It's just difficult. The other game is Persona 4 Golden. I originally had this game back when I bought my original Vita back in like 2015 or something like that. sold it, and then finally rebought it last year for way more than I was wanting to pay for it, but it was worth it. It's a good game. Everything that I said about Persona 5 could probably also apply to Persona 4, just in slightly different ways. It's just, I really appreciate this series. It's got just this really nice kind of style to it. And I love a good turn-based RPG too, so that's just the way it is. So yeah, Persona 4 Golden is really good. Should try it sometime. It's on Steam for $20. That's definitely better than paying $90 for a physical cartridge like I did.
Ouch.
And it's even worse because it's getting cheaper again, finally, from the Steam port. But whatever, I don't care. I got $90 of enjoyment out of this game easy. I don't care. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. If you're still listening to this, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. There's so much more to come. We're doing this every 2 weeks starting out. So yeah, if you liked what you heard, please feel free to hit the subscribe button or whatever is applicable to that. Share it with your friends. Also, Neal, where can people find you if they want to interact with you outside of the podcast?
Well, I am on both YouTube and Twitch. You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/c/vmk9. Haven't posted there in a while. I'm still working on videos. I've been saying this for a while on my Twitch streams, but I promise I will eventually come back. I will. But you can also check out all my backlog of it. I have a ton of videos. I got Minecraft. I got a lot of Super Mario 63, which is where most of my views are at, but also a dabbling of other games, including Mother 3 that we talked about. Check that out. Subscribe if you want. I'm also on Twitch. I am regularly streaming every week on Monday in the evening around 6 p.m. EST, somewhere between the 6 and 7 usually. We play on our Rome server with a bunch of my friends from a Discord, and right now we're playing in 1.18 in some newly generated terrain with limited lives and an ultra hardcore mode. It's super hard. We died a lot last week. We'll be starting again soon, depending on when this is uploaded. Check me out there. It's twitch.tv/vmk9. Give me a follow. I am not affiliate yet, but I'm hoping to get to 50 followers and start making some money off of Twitch, because that'd be great. So if you can support me there, I would really appreciate it.
All right, Lucas, you got anywhere you want to direct people?
Nope.
All right, fair enough.
Maybe later.
Maybe later. All right. Well, as for me, if you're already watching or listening to this on YouTube, then you know where to go already. You're right there on the Delicious Morsels channel. YouTube.com/Delicious Morsels. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm starting to kind of get back into the swing of things with the channel, doing some video game content. I got some music that I've recorded over the last few years that eventually I'll get back up there and upload. Otherwise, on Twitch, I don't stream regularly, but when I do get on and stream, it's usually in the evenings between about 7 and 10 p.m. Eastern, weeknights. Lately, I've been streaming Elden Ring, and that's been really fun, so maybe I'll hop back on and start streaming a little bit more of that throughout the week. Would really appreciate it if you come hang out. I need some people to interact with, keep me company so I don't rage quit. Yeah, so that is that. That is a wrap. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your day. And the TOGP crew is signing off. See ya.
Night, everybody.